to start with shipping and takeout. And then after that, I don't know.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this presentation from the Theosophical Society in America. My name is John Chianchosi. I'm the Director of Public Programs. I'm very happy to join you in your house this evening. The Theosophical Society's goal is to help people explore the spiritual path so as to arrive at a deeper understanding regarding the wisdom of the ages. Furthermore, we feel that this wisdom is not limited to any one tradition, and thus we offer programs from very many traditions. During this time that the national headquarters is closed, we are still happy to be able to bring you quite a number of programs that are all online, so that you can participate from your own home as you are doing this evening. These programs include our Thursday evening lecture series, as well as a number of classes and workshops that we are currently offering. I do encourage you to look at our website and scroll down under programs and see the number of wonderful opportunities you will have to explore the spiritual path in greater depth. But for this evening, I am very happy to be able to introduce Juliana Cesano. Juliana is one of our regular presenters and one of our most popular presenters. She's a second-generation Theosophist and has been actively involved with the Society's work for over 20 years. She volunteered for 2 years at the international headquarters in Chennai, India, and is part of the staff at the headquarters of the Theosophical Society of America here. And she is our yoga teacher, as well as the current manager of the Quest Bookshop. She often lectures, leads workshops, and teaches many classes. This evening, she will speak on the Bhagavad Gita for daily living. Juliana Cesano, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. And thank you, all of you, for joining us this evening. I hope this program finds you well, or at least peaceful. Today we will talk about the Bhagavad Gita, and this is going to be an introduction to this magnificent work, to this huge book that is very small, only 700 verses, but very powerful and very meaningful, and which has had tremendous impact on a lot of people around the world, regardless of their religious tradition. You may ask why the Bhagavad Gita. And the main reason was that tomorrow is May 8th, and we commemorate the death of the co-founder of the Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky. And she requested, it wasn't that she requested, but she was asked how she wanted to be remembered. And she said, well, I would like you all together to meet and to read passages of 2 books, The Light of Asia and the Bhagavad Gita. The Light of Asia is about the teachings and the life of the Buddha, and the Bhagavad Gita is what we will see a little bit tonight. It is, of course, with the special characteristic of Madame Blavatsky, with her tremendous knowledge and insight. It is telling for us that she picked these 2 books. And if you read the Gita, you will see why she did. So like I said, it is a powerful small book of 700 verses, 18 chapters. And it covers both cosmic and human realities, because from a certain standpoint, there isn't really a difference between cosmic and human. So the book teaches us the great picture, the big picture, as much as the small picture, from the unmanifested absolute reality to how to meditate. So that is remarkable on itself. A book that can address both those aspects of life. I can assure you that its teachings can take a lifetime to grasp, and probably several lifetimes to practice or to live according to this teaching. And this book has had a huge, like I said, a huge influence in various famous people or well-known people, well regarded by many of us within the Theosophical Society and outside. And one of them was Annie Besant, who was one of our international presidents of the Theosophical Society and a remarkable woman. And she made she actually translated the Gita from the Sanskrit into English in a very poetic, but also she tried to be as literal as possible as to the meaning and significance of the words. This work was also very important in the life of many others. And as an example, I'll tell you Mahatma Gandhi, who was introduced to the Gita by two Theosophists, actually. And this book became a pillar in his life, a guidance through the difficult times that he experienced in his career and as a leader. And it is said that he recited the second discourse of the Gita, the actual last 18 verses of the second discourse, every day of his life as his meditation practice, or as part of it. And many other Theosophists were dedicated time to study, to reflect on this topic, and to disentangle the amount of information and teaching that is given in it. I can recommend you several authors. One of them is John Algeo, who did a phenomenal study guide. And I think he put his whole heart into that. There's also studies from William Judge, Geoffrey Barborka, and Subba Rao, and many others. Now, the Gita itself is a Sanskrit poem and literally means the Lord's song. Gita means song, and Bhagavad is the title, Lord. So the Lord's song. And it was written around 400 BC. It is part of the longest book in the world, which is the Mahabharata, that has 18 volumes. And the Mahabharata and also the Gita are about a civil war. And they're both, apparently they're historical, but also metaphorical, to give a spiritual teaching to the world. It is a dialogue between two people, primarily, between Prince Arjuna and Krishna. Prince Arjuna represents the human being. It represents you and I. And he in particular belongs to the warrior caste of India. So he is a warrior. And Krishna is, in Indian mythology, the incarnation of God Vishnu. But Arjuna doesn't know that. Arjuna talks to Krishna as if he was his cousin and friend, as he was also. But he doesn't know that Krishna is an incarnation of the divine. And more than that, and we'll see a little bit of this. So the Gita takes place right when a battle is about to begin. And both Arjuna and Krishna are inside the chariot, and they're in the field of battle. There are two sides, and of course Arjuna belongs to one of them, and he happens to be on the side of the good guys. Arjuna carries a bow and an arrow, and for that reason he needs a charioteer. And of course, that is Krishna. So in this moment, Arjuna says, "Take me to the center of the field so that I may look." Even though he is fighting on the side of good, he is fighting his own family members. Some of his family members are on the other side of the battle. And they are his cousins and an uncle, a grandfather, and also a teacher. So he realizes the implications of the battle, of the fact that he has to kill his own family, and enters into a crisis. He says, I am not going to fight. And turns into Krishna and says, please tell me what to do. So the Gita is Krishna's answer to Arjuna's desperation. Despair obscures our vision of what, and most of all, of what is to be done. So it's a stage on the yogic path of self-awakening. Often it is that very despair that drives us to seek, to look deeper, to ask questions, and also to surrender and say to someone, please tell me what to do. In this case, God. The first two words of the Bhagavad Gita are Dharma Kshetra Kurukshetra. Kshetra means field or realm. So they are telling us that this story happens in two fields or in one field. Kurukshetra is the field of the Kurus. The family of Arjuna are the Kurus. And Kurukshetra is actually the field where they're about to fight. Now, Dharma Kshetra is the field of Dharma. And Dharma is one of the central teachings of the Gita. The word Dharma is, of course, Sanskrit, like all the words in this book. And it's a particularly rich word. All the Sanskrit words have many meanings, but Dharma in itself seems to touch so many departments of life, so many areas of knowledge, of existence, of being. It has been translated as duty, as law, as religion, as teaching, and so on. But looking at all those definitions, Dharma also gives you, reflecting more on the meaning of it, you can discover the essence of what Dharma is. And it happens to be the essential nature or the true identity of anything, or at least in the case in which we're going to see it in the Gita, because it is mostly translated as duty. Not as a duty that comes from the outside, but the way we should act because of who and what we are. Each one of us has a dharma, a life purpose. I have two dharmas. I have a life purpose and a daughter with that name, which I could say is both are one. So the dharma of a flower, for example, is to bloom. Not because someone has said to the flower, you need to bloom, but it's because it springs from the core of its being. A friend of mine once told me, knowing who you are, nobody can do it better than you. And I think that is a great definition of Dharma. But for that, we need to know who we are. And that is not always easy. We struggle with that one. And for many reasons, I think, and one of them is because we have received many labels from the moment we were born. We were told who we were. And we believed that, whether it was from our family or from society or from our religion, we were told who we were. And to discover who we are again, We need to remove those labels and look deeper. And not only, there is the who we are in this lifetime, but there's also the ultimate who we are. So it becomes more complex than that. So Arjuna asks in that moment for guidance. And this is, I think, an indication of asking, in the moment of despair, of not knowing what we need to do, to surrender to this highest vision that is within us and to ask for help. As we were told by another teacher, ask and you shall be given. So Arjuna says in the first discourse, my heart is weighed down with the vice of faintness. My mind is confused as to duty. I am thy disciple. Supply unto thee. Teach me. So answers come when we ask, but also when we are ready to see and when we are ready to listen. And eventually, when we are ready to learn. Otherwise, we don't see the answers, or the answers don't come to us. One of the central subjects of the book is the difference between the real and the unreal. The difference between what is eternal and impermanent in the universe and in ourselves. Because, like I said before, we are not really different from the universe. So the Gita says, the unreal has no being. The real never ceases to be. So the unreal is a periodical manifestation of that which never ceases to be. Krishna teaches Arjuna, nor at any time verily was I not, nor you, nor these princes of men, nor verily shall we ever cease to be. So the basic teaching is, you were never born and you will never die. So take a moment to consider this, how life would be, how life could be experienced from this point, from this place. You were never born and you will never die. So the real is seen as the eternal, all-pervasive, immutable. And the unreal as all that is impermanent, and for that, ever-changing. Something we don't get used to that fact, that everything is constantly changing. And things will come and go, and things will happen, and then they will dissolve, and something else will come. So Krishna says, those who are wise in spiritual things grieve neither for the dead nor for the living. And that is a hard lesson for all of us. Our greatest attachment is to life and the life of those whom we love. So we can just ask the question, can we soften that attachment? Can we love with less attachment? From a certain perspective, real, true love has no attachments. The context of matter, Krishna says, given cold and heat, pleasure and pain, they come and go, impermanent. Endure them bravely, O Bharata. Krishna calls Arjuna in many different ways throughout the text, and vice versa. And each word that they use is giving you a clue about what is that they are talking about. because of the Sanskrit words have so much meaning. So in this case, we can see that the more we cling to what is impermanent, the more we suffer. And we can begin to notice that, to become acquainted how that happens and how that it manifests in us and in our own lives. My 6-year-old daughter, one day we were doing something, and all of a sudden, for no reason, she asked me, "Mom, are we in a dream?" And I didn't know what to answer her, because on one hand, no, we're not in a dream as we know the dreams, when you go to sleep. But in a way, as we are taught, we live in a kind of dream. Because one day we will wake up from this limited experience and limited existence, and we'll see life as it truly is. So consider that for a moment and reflect on that. When we wake up from a dream, we assume, oh, that was a dream, so I could do anything I wanted in the dream, nothing happens. I just woke up and now I am living. But have you thought of the fact that one day you may wake up from this dream as well? So my daughter also told me very recently, she said, I had this dream, I was holding on to something, and I knew that if I let go, I was going to die. But she said, right there, I remember that I was in a dream, and in a dream you have many lives. So I let go, she said, because I knew it was a dream. And to me, it was the most wonderful teaching. So at some point, Arjuna wants to know a little bit more about what this means. And he says, how do the stable of mind talk, sit, and walk? So how do we do this? Yes, I understand all this theory you're giving me, but how do we do this? And the Gita goes into detail, even on how to practice, on how to sit, and what to chant, and where to focus the attention. But it begins by talking about the sage of stable mind. He whose mind is free from anxiety amid pains, indifferent amid pleasures, loose from passion, fear, and anger, he is called a sage of stable mind. So this is just one little sentence of these 18 verses that I was mentioning you about, that Gandhi recited daily. So when the mind identifies with the emotions, we become that. We say, this is who I am. And as a consequence, we act in accordance to that feeling. So then all kinds of problems arise, and we're very familiar with that. What we are less familiar with is with the process of reversing that. How can we disidentify from emotions? And one first step would be to notice when the emotion arises. And to know that that emotion is there temporarily, and it's definitely not who we are. It will come, it will go, as thoughts do as well, as desire does, as pain and pleasure do. So when the mind disengages and watches in silence, there is stability and there is peace. If we cling to them, then we're lost. Another aspect of life and the spiritual path that is mentioned is detachment or dispassion. He who on every side is without attachments, who never likes nor dislikes. Of such a one, the understanding is well poised. Make pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat the same to you. So consider this, a life in which pleasure and pain are the same. Gain and loss, praise and blame. Because they truly don't affect the one in us who was never born and will never die. So it all depends where we place ourselves. We know that desire is of the very nature of life, so as long as we have a body, there is going to be desire. But the problem arises when we identify with it. So we can start questioning it and take the focus into the bigger picture. So some people have given meaning to the characters in this story, as if they were symbolic of something. And one interpretation is like this. It says that Arjuna is you and I, is the human being. But more specifically, he is our conscious mind, which must make the choice of how to live. The chariot is our physical body, and the senses are the horses. The cousins that Arjuna must conquer, the wicked cousins that Arjuna must conquer, are our impulses to self-centeredness. They're not just the other army on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but the foes within himself on the life field of Dharmakshetra. And Krishna, our charioteer, is the divine spark within us, our higher self, but also God. The silent voice that is always available to rein in the horses of our feelings and thoughts, and to guide us in the battle of life. Of course, if we ask, and if we knock, and if we listen, and if we're ready to learn. In all the different ways that Krishna addresses Arjuna, and one time he calls him Gudakesha, which means Lord of Sleep, which also gives us the clue about this dream. But another interpretation of that has been that Lord of Sleep is referring to the spiritual intuition, to buddhi in Arjuna, the faculty of being awake and making right choices are still asleep in him. So he must discriminate, but he is not able to do so because he hasn't still developed that capacity. So for that, Krishna offers 3 paths, the 3 yogas. By the way, each of these chapters are called the yoga of something something. So each chapter is a type of yoga. But in particular, the Gita speaks of 3 margas, or paths. And yoga here refers to the path of union, of conscious self-realization. So yoga is also defined in this book as skill in action, the skill that comes from the insight of spiritual intuition. So these 3 types of journeys are described not necessarily as different paths to take, if I have to choose one or the other, but as ways of approaching the divine, of walking the spiritual path. And some of us may be a combination of these different paths, or maybe we're required to walk the three of them simultaneously. And I think that will be one of the choices that I see as more suitable. So these three paths or margas are the karma marga, the bhakti marga, and the jnana marga. The karma marga, which is, in simple terms, karma can be defined as action. So this path is the path of acting skillfully or coming to wholeness by right action. The path of bhakti, the devotional path, is the path of devotion to the divine, the governing intelligence of the universe. Or, in other terms, coming to wholeness by devoted confidence. And jnana marga, the path of knowledge of who we are, and hence how to choose, or coming to wholeness by direct insight into the nature of things. So Krishna says about these three paths, he says, in whatever way men approach me, in that way do I assist them. But whatever the path taken by mankind, that path is mine. So he's saying, I will assist you in whatever way you come to me. Whether you're Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist. Or whether you follow the karma, the bhakti, or the jnana marga. Because I am God, and God is only one. So this is not a path exclusive to a religion. In whatever way you come one with oneness, in that way you will be assisted. And if anything is stressed constantly in the Gita, is to be brave and to act, to trust and to try. So first we will look quickly into the yoga of skillful action, or the yoga of action. And we have to point out that action is not confined just to the physical realm. There is action in thought, there is action in emotion, in speech, as well as of the body. So consider for a moment all the ways in which you're constantly acting, even when you think that you don't. You're still thinking or feeling about things. So Krishna tells Arjuna, in acting, you should not be concerned with the fruit of the action, but the action itself. Do what is right in these circumstances. Be concerned with doing it the right way, not with what it accomplishes. So don't worry about what you may get out of it. And he says, the man who does that, the man who does that which he has to do without attachment to the result obtains the supreme. So here we're asked to look at motives, at the reasons why we do things. So what we do is important, but more important than that is why we do it. It is the key to, that precisely is the key to skillful action. So recognizing our own motives is not simple. It requires time and self-examination to see our real motivation behind things. For some of our more intricate actions, it can be like uncovering the layers of an onion. We think we're doing things for this, but then we look deeper and we realize it wasn't really that. There's other reasons underneath, and we keep looking. But for that, we kind of had to sit down and consider things. We had to spend some time during the day to look into how we acted, but also why we acted in that way. What were we seeking? Are we seeking something from this? Or just we decided to act in this way because we thought it was the right thing to do in those circumstances, with the best of our ability at this point, because nothing else can be given but that. So do not be, continuing with the teaching that Krishna is giving to Arjuna, do not be incited to actions by the hope of their reward, nor let thy life be spent in inaction. So the teaching is about being brave and acting, and also recognizing that even when we think that we're not acting, we are. But it's asking us to be brave. So the essence of this one particular path, the path of skillful action, is as follows. Whoever, in acting, dedicates his actions to the Supreme Spirit and puts aside all selfish interest in their result, that person is untouched by sin. And that pretty much summarizes, gives a very general idea of what this path is about, which is all that we can do in this short time that we have together. So then we move into the yoga of devotion. Krishna says, with the mind absorbed in me, refuged in me, you will without doubt know me to the uttermost. I will declare to you this knowledge and wisdom in its completeness, which having known, there is nothing more here needed to be known. So we get to know the reality of life, the eternal, by becoming absorbed in the divine, by taking refuge in God. Therefore, at all times, think upon me only and fight. Like, address whatever needs to be addressed. Look at yourself and work on yourself. Don't sit and just expect things to change or things to happen. This is the realm of Kurukshetra. This is a realm of action. With mind and reason set on me, without doubt, you will come to me. So therefore, at all times, think upon me only and fight. With mind and reason set on me. And this, in this case, reason means, according to Besant, it means the spiritual intuition. So with mind and intuition set on me, without doubt, you will come to me. And the spiritual intuition in the Theosophical teachings is placed in the heart, in the center of our being. So taking refuge in the center of our being. So it comes a point in which Arjuna actually wants to see Krishna's true nature. He wants to see the imperishable self of reality. He wants to see Krishna's true form. So Krishna agrees with that and warns Arjuna that no human being can behold that reality with mortal eyes. So he gives Arjuna the divine eye, which we can, with which he can behold Krishna's true form. So it seems that we can experience this reality directly only by giving up our human limitations, our physical eyes, let's say, and accepting the divine eyes. So there is something that needs to be given to us, the capacity to see. We may see this path, in this path in particular, that this comes as grace. So we knock, we work, we try, we look at ourselves. But then this reality is given to us. The possibility to see it is given to us. So then Arjuna contemplates this vision. He gets to see Krishna and in his real form. And it's both magnificent and terrifying. But then he says, I see thee everywhere, unbounded form, beginning, middle, end, nor source of thee. Infinite Lord, infinite form I find, shining, a mass of splendor everywhere, blazing as a fire, a sun dazzling the gaze from all sides in the sky, immeasurable. And then he has to ask Krishna to return to his previous form, because it was enough of a vision for him to see. Many of the mystical accounts talk a little bit about this, especially of the desire that at some point the mystic or the disciple has to see the divine eye to eye. It is that longing for union and to see, in some words sometimes, the beloved. That request from within to see. And we are told that normally we have only glimpses of this reality because we are not able to handle it. Our mind, our physical senses, and our inner senses are not prepared for that vision. But as we walk the path, and as we walk these paths, or any other, we become closer and closer to that, the possibility of experiencing that. And the last path is the yoga of knowledge, the jnana marga, the yoga of knowledge or direct insight. And this is the most technical of the three ways to union. It is about, in the way that I understand it, it is about understanding the nature of reality. That is, as it is called in one of the discourses, the knower and the field. And it is called in the discourse, the knower of the field and the field itself. So this is about understanding the nature of reality. So this yoga aims at using the mind to go beyond the limitations of the mind. An example of this is the way in which Madame Blavatsky instructed some of her students to read The Secret Doctrine. She herself gives this instruction and says, as one progresses in jnana yoga, one finds conceptions arising that one cannot express nor yet formulate into any sort of mental picture. So there is something, there's still not the capacity within the mind to perceive these realities, even at a conceptual level. As time goes on, these conceptions will form into a mental picture. This is a time to be on guard and refuse to be deluded with the idea that the new found and wonderful picture must represent reality. It does not. The learner will now know that no picture will ever represent the truth. This last splendid picture will grow dulled and fade like the others. And so the process goes on until at last the mind and its pictures are transcended and the learner enters and dwells in the world of no form, but of which all forms are narrowed reflections. So Jnana Yoga is the process of perceiving the world of no form by studying the forms that are only its narrowed reflections. So if you want to summarize even more these three paths, or to have a simple key on how to act according to them, we can say this, that the path of action is to offer all actions to the divine without expectations or reward or looking for the result. The devotional path is to seek the divine within our heart and still offer all that we do to the divine. And if the divine sounds as something too far from us, if we don't have this relationship with a God, we can think of a teacher, or we can also devote ourselves to the people we love. So we act for their benefit and in their benefit, and we offer those actions to them. And the last path can be summarized as think of the divine often. So whenever you feel entangled in life, or entangled by every day by an emotion or a thought, notice that and bring your mind back into the big picture. Perhaps the idea of this being a dream, perhaps this being from a certain perspective unreal, or placing yourself in any type of perception you may have of what God is, what the divine is. In the Theosophical tradition, sometimes it is used the concept of space, or the understanding that we have of space, as something we can always return to. In the devotional path, it is said you can go into your heart at any time throughout the day and refuge yourself there, not to isolate yourself or become indifferent to others, to center yourself, to remember who you are. And the same with actions. So this book is about the fact that there is a single reality pervading all existence, and that we are that unseen reality. In Sanskrit, there is a mantra that says, Tat Vam Asi, you are that. And the trees around your house are that, and your pet is that, and the earth, and the wind, the rays of the sun, and the worm, and every atom. And that is what Arjuna discovers at the end, that he is Krishna, and so are you. and so each one of us. So I hope this very short introduction to this book inspires you to find it, to look into all the study courses and guides that have been written about it, and most of all, that it inspires you to live according to these teachings. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Uli. Beautiful as usual, extremely inspiring, uplifting, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you did enjoy this evening's presentation, you'll be happy to know that Uli is also offering a 2-hour workshop on Saturday afternoon from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. It is an interactive workshop in that we're streaming it through the Zoom platform, which allows for the participants to not only hear and watch, but also engage by sending in questions or by asking questions. And it is very much an experiential workshop. The subject obviously is a follow-up from this evening, experiencing the divine splendor. And I do very much encourage you to go to our website, read more about it, and if you find it that it is inspiring, please register and do so early so that we can send you all the relevant information for you to join that workshop on Saturday afternoon. We are doing quite a lot more of these interactive workshops now that we cannot have public gatherings at the national headquarters. Most of them are on Saturday afternoon, and the Saturday after Holi, which will be on May 16th, we will have Ravi Ravindra from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. This is all Central Time, and the theme of his workshop will be how to find meaning during difficult times. All of these titles and subjects and themes are obviously targeted to an audience going through difficult times, which we all are. It's a time of challenge. It's allowing us an opportunity to either rise up, or if we're not careful, we may sink down. Our hope is that we will not only rise up individually, that we'll help each other rise up together as a community. And this is the hope of the Theosophical Society in providing these workshops, classes, and group meetings online. Please do go to our website and scroll down under programs, see what we are offering, and I am sure you'll find many of those programs that will be of some interest to you, in which case, please do register. It is a way in which we can support you at this time in your spiritual quest and well-being, and it is a way in which you can support the Theosophical Society at a time when we are experiencing some financial stress. Now, Thursday next week, we will have a lecture by Pablo Sender, who is well known to most of the Theosophical community, not only nationally, but internationally. And he will be speaking on working with life's challenges, a spiritual approach. Again, a theme that is most relevant at this time. I do thank you for joining us this evening, and of course, thank you to Huli in particular. I've enjoyed this evening being with Huli and being with you at home. Please join us again next week and stay safe and be well. Good night to you all.